Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with coach, speaker, writer, and the Creatives Apprentice founder, Jessica Conoley. Jessica ultimately creates creatives and creates stories. She spends her mornings writing fantasy novels, business how-to articles, and creative nonfiction. Afternoons are dedicated to helping creatives own their worth. She simplifies their business practices, coaches them through limiting misbeliefs, and connects them with the support community. Her specialty is helping people become happier and more creative as they increase productivity and live their dreams. Enjoy this interview.
Jessica, thanks for taking a minute out. I apologize for the delay. And the first thing that I want to dive into here is what we've gone through the last couple of years with COVID. I'm curious how you survived that time period, that 2-year lockdown period, and how it changed the way that not only you live your life, but the way that you approach business.
So I'm an introvert, and I'd already been working from home. So honestly, the transition that a lot of people had of the, oh no, we're at home all the time was not an issue for me. What I found was that all of my friends who were used to working in offices and my writer friends, they were dying for more engagement and community. And so what I did is I started running virtual co-working spaces 3 times a week. And what the goal was for people who needed more interaction to actually have the chance to talk to people face to face, but then also for us to put some structure into our days and give us like designated work time. So for 2 hours at a stretch, what we would do is we'd log on to Zoom. 15 minutes, we would go ahead and just chat, about whatever. 45 minutes we'd work, we'd take another break for 15 minutes, and then 45 minutes to get back to work. And it was fantastic because I set it up as a COVID low stress, no stress zone. So it was just like this brilliant little community online, and it's still going today. We've seen friendships go like across countries, and I've met a lot of people I never would have met before. They may have found me through my writing, or they found me through another person in the group. And so that was one of the most unexpected positive things that came out of COVID for me.
Yeah, I think technology is definitely a conduit, but the cornerstone has always been community. I think we all need to feel connected, but I think thankfully it happened at this point instead of in the 80s because there would have been very little connectivity. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So let's kind of hone in exactly on what you do. And I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. And one of the kids looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I'm a dream enabler. So I help other people live their dreams, and I teach them that they can live their dreams by living mine. And my personal dream is writing, and so I write books, and I write those for myself to have adventures and learn about myself. And then I also write nonfiction stuff, which is about how to live your dreams and maybe make some money off of doing it and kind of de-scary all of the business parts of it. And the way I help other people live their dreams is I set an example for them. I think that's the strongest thing you can do. But the other thing I do is I have a business called the Creatives Apprentice. And at the Creatives Apprentice, I simplify business practices for creative minds. And then I'm also a life and a business coach. And what I found was that a lot of people started chasing their dreams, but they got so stressed out along the way. They were just really anxious about when things were going to happen or how they were going to happen or if they were going to have money. And even though they were creating this beautiful art or music or books or whatever they were creating, they were so stressed out. And I wanted to know how to be happy, and I wanted my clients to know how to be happy while they were living their dreams. So I went out and got certified as a life coach. And I found a methodology called positive intelligence. And what it does is it teaches us to just really focus and hone in on our creativity and switch out of that like chaos mind and build a muscle so that you can get back into that flow state and then focus on listening to your intuition and your creativity so you can go out and build not only the art that you want to build, but the life that you want to build. So I consider myself a dream enabler first and foremost.
Wow, that sounds magical. And I'm curious, when you were in the 3rd grade, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, man. So Jim and the Holograms, so I was like an 80s kid. Jim and the Holograms, Jerrica Vinton was a music executive by day, and a rock star at night, and I wanted to be Jim for sure. Like, she was amazing, and she had really great fashion, and I think part of the reason that I loved her so much was I was a divorced kid, and so I would spend 1 week at one parent's house and then another week at the other parent's house, and so the duality of that character really resonated with me because I had to play different roles where I was, wherever I, which house I was at. And so I think I would have been Jim if I could have been anything at that point in time.
Are you happy with how everything turned out where you are right now in life?
Yeah, it's not what I expected at all. I'm a corporate escapee, and I'm really proud of myself for getting out of there. And I'm really proud of myself for honing into my intuition and my skill strengths. And, of course, there's things I still want to achieve, but I'm really happy with where I'm at right now.
So the one thing, as you know, as a writer, the best part of our lives can be those that we look up to, heroes or role models. Who has that been for you in your life?
Writer-wise, or just any way?
I guess anybody that's inspired you to become who you are in life.
There's a local Kansas City writer named Deborah Schaus, and she's one of the first mentors I ever met. When I turned 30, I freaked out and drove to Texas to a research institute, and that's how I got into writing. And so after that, I joined Kansas City Writers Group, and Deborah Schaus was one of the leaders of that writers group. And what I see in Deborah is this unshakable faith that following our passion is always going to take care of us. And when I transitioned from that leap of corporate 9-to-5, really steady, paycheck every 2 weeks, which I've been getting one since I was 14, so to transition to freelance work was a big, money adjustment. And Deborah and I were out, and she was talking about money, and she's like, the money always shows up. And I was just like, really? And she was like, yeah, the money will always show up. You do what you need to do. You do the work you need to do, and it will show up. And I didn't believe it at the time, but I believed Deborah, and I trusted her. And I was like, okay, well, she's not going to lie to me, and she doesn't lie to me. And so because of Deborah and seeing how she's lived her life and the books she's put out and then the work she's done especially for the dementia community and all of that, and she's probably been one of the biggest role models and impacts in my life.
So you mentioned Kansas City. Are you in Lawrence now?
Oh, no, I have a Lawrence number. I went to KU, but I live in Overland Park, so I live in Kansas City.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in Lee Summit, and I rarely through this community interview anybody that's local. So it's nice to have somebody local I'm interviewing.
Yeah, I saw your cover art, and I was like, oh, I know what's going on here.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, you're in the know for sure. So,
yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about growing up. And, we all have these seeds that are planted in us when we're young. What were those seeds that were planted in you that really made you not only become a writer, but to become somebody that's orchestrating dreams for people?
It may have actually been a reverse learning curve for me. So the family that I grew up in, the people definitely were considered or very concerned with stability and security, or the illusion of it. And so I saw the people around me go to very reliable jobs, but they were not jobs that they loved. They were acting out of a sense of obligation in many, many areas of their lives. And so that's what I knew, and that's what I followed until I was 30. And then something just broke in me where I was like, if I keep doing this, if I keep going into a corporate job, something in me that is irrevocably me is going to die. And it wasn't a matter of courage to leave my corporate job. It was a matter of feeling like stasis is death. We talk about that in characters when we write, staying in the same spot equals dying, and that's what it felt like for me. And so I left out of a sense of desperation. And as I did that, I just got more in touch. I'd always written as a way to process things, but it had never occurred to me to write, as a means of supporting myself, because I didn't have any role models. I didn't think it was possible. I just thought it was something that you saw in movies or something. And so I think for me, my childhood was a lesson in one way of living, and my adulthood has been okay, I've tried to walk that path and it doesn't work for me, and seeing how there's other avenues. And I think for me, writing and reading especially, reading has always been like a haven for me. But writing is where I process emotions, and it just came to me so innately that because it was easy and it was fun, I was like, this can't be work, because I was taught work had to be hard. And it's not that writing isn't hard, it's just that writing engages a different part of me, and it can be fun and it can be play. And it never had occurred to me that was how a life could be. And so I think because I found it so late compared to some people, that's what makes me so passionate about dream enabling and just sharing that and freeing other people to do what they're passionate about, I guess.
So I worked in corporate America for a little while, and I got to tell you, I to this day have not watched Office Space because, or the Office, I should say. I don't find it funny. I don't think it's cute. I can't do it.
I have never seen it. I'm the exact same way. People are like, oh, it's so funny, and I was like, I can't. Yeah.
No, that world isn't funny like that at all. And I remember that I worked at a very large architectural engineering firm, HNTV, and I saw the movie Office Space, and that was it. I went to downward spiral after that, and I had a big career change after that. But it really is. It's an environment that works for certain people, but, it sounds like from who you are, if you're a dreamer and you have big ambitions that are way above and beyond that kind of world, it will choke you really quick.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I totally understand. So let me ask you this. If you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and talk to them, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Anybody alive? I would kind of love to meet Tom York from Radiohead. I don't know what I would say to him. Like, I think I would just be like, your music always makes me feel better. Actually, I would tell him the story of In Rainbows. So my mom passed away, and when I got the news, I was working with some of my friends. They own a brewery here in town, and I work there twice a week just so I can talk to people, because otherwise I would never leave my house. And so I got the phone call that my mom had passed away, and my friend was like, what do you want to listen to? And I said In Rainbows, which is a Radiohead album. And then after the night closed down, it was a really nice night. It was June, so we all went out on the patio, and two of my friends knew what had happened, but the rest, there was probably 6 of us, and we're all really close, but I just didn't say anything because I didn't, it was really weird. But as we're sitting there, a double rainbow came out, and it was the biggest rainbow I'd ever seen in my life. And
wow.
My brother, so that was in Waldo. So you're from Kansas City, so you know where Waldo is. So my brother was in Olathe at the time, and he was with his friends when it happened. And he's driving home, and he texts me this picture, and it's the rainbow. And he's like, Mom just sent us a rainbow. And I was like, oh my God, she did. So then I was like, okay, super cool. My mom sent my brother and me this rainbow. Well, I also have a stepsister, and I hadn't seen them for maybe a month, because Mom's service was delayed and all that kind of stuff. And so a month after, I'm at dinner with my stepsister and brother-in-law and all them, and my brother-in-law is like, hey, Jess, I heard you saw the rainbow. And I was like, what? And he's like, the rainbow, your mom sent us. And they were in Lawrence at the time. And Lawrence, is an hour away from where I was. So then I was like, that's insane. Well, then one of my nephews, so my mom's grandkid, was like, yeah, I saw it too. And I was like, what do you mean you saw it? And he goes, yeah, I was driving home, and he was on vacation with his girlfriend's family in western Kansas. And at the same time, all of us saw that same rainbow. And I was listening to In Rainbows by Radiohead. So I would like to tell Tom York that story.
Oh my God, the serendipity of that and the depth of that would have to blow him away. Yeah, I would think no matter how moody Tom is, you would have to totally dig up on that for sure.
I hope so.
It's strange how life works, because, when those things happen, it's like seeing a cardinal, and there's certain things that you see. I remember and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but coming from a jazz background, especially Kansas City, when Charlie Parker died, there was an heiress that used to hang out with all of them, and she was kind of, I think she was from Paris, and she had a lot of money, and she just kind of floated around, but she was kind of the protector of the jazz cats, especially back in the time when there were so many racially motivated things going on. And she was a very wealthy white woman, but she was just kind of taken in with all these guys. And the night that he died, and, Charlie was 35, and the coroner, checked him over. His body had aged to like 64. He put himself through such a life. But the night that he died, he was in her apartment in New York City, and there was a thunderclap when it happened. It was so loud, it was unreal, and it went over, it just peeled over New York. But it happened right when she found him, and it happened. And anyway, I when you were saying that, I was just thinking about that story because it's wild how all that works.
Yeah, I agree.
But have you ever seen Radiohead live?
Yeah, I've seen him twice.
Wow. Where did you see him at?
We saw him in St. Louis one time at the arena there, and then I saw him at the Sprint Center or whatever it's called now. I don't know what it's called now, but
what album were they playing at the Sprint Center?
I want to say it would have been about. Okay, hold on a second. I would have been 32, maybe. So I'm 43 now. So about 10 years ago.
Okay. I lose track of all of that, but I remember I saw Hail to the Sea from St. Louis outside, and I remember the murmur was, it's all really kind of dependent on the mood that Tom is in, and he was in a pretty rare good mood that night. It was a good show, but yeah, I've been keeping an eye out to see when they're going to release anything, and I know that Johnny Greenwood does a lot of soundtrack work. I think all of them are really kind of, they're all kind of busy with their own things, but it'll hit when it's unexpected. I think probably, I would say here within a year when the pandemic kind of settles a little bit more, I think they'll probably be ready to do something.
Yeah, both shows I've been to were phenomenal. The St. Louis one was unexpected, though, because I didn't realize how close our seats were. My friend had gotten us seats, and so they were, really close. It was like, oh, my God, how did this happen? So
that's wonderful. That's cool. Yeah, I did actually see Tom solo in, I think, 2018 at the Uptown, and that was a pretty cool show.
Oh, wow, I thought it was. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I went to that. It was a light show. There was this huge, crazy light show with it.
Yeah. There was this crazy thing that opened up for him. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I went to that show too. Yeah, totally.
It was cool. Yeah, it was very cool. So I'm curious, if you have a dream tonight, kind of looking back on your life, the decisions you've made, the things that you've done, if you have a dream tonight, you run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give your younger version a piece of advice based on the wisdom that you've gained in your life. And it's not necessarily a regret question. It's more of things that you've learned, avenues that you've gone down. What would you tell your young version?
Trust yourself and you're not crazy.
I get it. Would you say anything about corporate America?
I don't know if I necessarily would, because my real superpower is simplifying and demystifying and de-scaring business for creative people. And what I found is a lot of creative people are just so overwhelmed if you're oh, you got to do your taxes or bookkeeping or, there's just marketing. There's these words that just freak them out. I had a client I did a one-on-one with, and she was weirded out about contracts. And I was like, all a contract is you saying, this is what I'm going to deliver to you, and in exchange, I expect you to do this. And it's just a document where you write it down, and then if you don't understand the words on it, it's your job to understand the words on it, and then you give yourself an out so that if somebody breaks their promises, then you know what happens. And it's just a way of preventing, further stress. And so explaining contracts in that way to her, I visibly saw her just relax and be oh. So I think, while I did not enjoy all the corporate stuff, I learned I could do things that I did not enjoy for a long time. So I learned I had this work ethic that I could apply towards myself. But I think all of the learning that I needed to do through those corporate jobs that I had informs the business that I'm creating today, and is going to empower creatives to financially get what they're worth, because that's the thing, is I want creatives to own their worth. So unfortunately, I think that 20-year-old me would still have to go through some of the corporate journey, so that she would learn what she needs to build the business that I built. But I think what I have now that I didn't have then is this unshakable knowledge that I'm not crazy, and doing it differently means I'm just ahead of the learning curve, and that there's a need for it, and it's my job to catch those people who are ready for it when they show up. And so I think just trusting myself is something I did not get, I would say, until probably the last 2 years, of being like unshakable in the faith in what I'm doing.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things in life that we have to go down, no matter, good, bad, or ugly, that will teach us and shape us into who we are, for sure.
Yeah.
So, now that the world's kind of waking up and we're coming out of this COVID lockdown, not necessarily that the virus is dead, but the world is waking up. Have you seen yourself accelerate your schedule and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish based on it, or has it been kind of maintained a regular pace that you're used to pre-pandemic?
It's definitely changed pre-pandemic, but I think, so for me, so much of the pandemic was also tied up in my mom's dying. She died of cancer, not of COVID, but so it was 16 months of a very different way of living my life than I ever had before. And it was a very clear microscope of focusing on what my priorities were and where I wanted to spend my attention. And it made it easier to say no to things and everything. So I do feel like I'm ramping back up, but I can't tell you if that's coming out of the pandemic or if that's just getting back to a new life, because my old life died, part of it, with my mom.
So you would kind of mention it a little bit, and I'm curious, is there like a book that is there a book that you've read in your life that you come back to, something that was seminal in your development?
Yeah, I have several books. So I'm normally like a voracious reader. I mean, just like gobbling down books. But the last year when my mom was sick, at the worst of it, I couldn't read. I could only read 2 books over and over and over again. One of them was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and then the other one was Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mace. And so those 2 books I could pick up and just, I'd read them so many times I didn't have to read them in sequential order. That there was unique comforts in both of them. In The Alchemist, the writing is just so simple and elegant, and there's so much depth in the simplicity of the writing that you can learn something every time as a writer. And so I just really, even the fact that it's a translation is fascinating to me, and looking at how, because my roommate has an edition and I have an edition, and like looking at the slight translation differences and things like that. So The Alchemist is a book I come back to again and again. And then Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mace was really helpful to me, because she breaks down some ideas about energy and how energy flows, and all of that became very interesting to me and very relevant to me after I'd read a different book in January of 2020. And what I'd found is, I'd always been the type of person who took on other people's emotions and things like that, or could read a room really well and modify my behavior to try and make others feel better. But that wasn't necessarily the healthiest behavior for me. And what I found out was a lot of that could be sensitivities to energy. And so I went deep into energy studies to learn how to better understand that. And that book by Carolyn Mace was just, it was like a gateway book for me. And so I just could mine it over and over again for energy and for insights to a new area of my life that I didn't understand prior.
So, the one thing about being in a profession is that there's this level of expertise you gain, and you know things that the rest of us don't. And as you kind of tap into helping creatives figure out their dreams and where they need to go, I'm curious, if you boil everything down, like one of the top fears that writers and creative people have in kind of getting over something to move to another step or to start things, what's one of the top things that you've noticed in your line of work that you try to help people get over so that they can start or get to where they need to go? Is there like a common thread that exists?
Regarding their fears specifically?
Yeah, kind of just getting to that point where they feel good enough to write the book or to do what they want to do creatively. That, you know, there's that block. And what's the main thing that you coach them on to get over? What is one of the top things that you have to deal with in regards to that?
Sure. So I don't know if I coined the term, but there's this idea of creative stewardship, and it's our responsibility to get our idea out of our head and into a tangible physical matter, be it a song, a book, whatever. And the one thing I know with unshaking, just to my bones, beyond my bones, is that whatever we are creating, there is a person who needs it. And what I do with my clients is I get them to think of some art, some song, some event, you know, some creation that came to them at the exact perfect time. The story that came to them when they needed to hear it, or like in Rainbows when that happened, right? There's all of this art that shapes our lives, and a person needs it. It's not that they want it. It's not that they're interested in it. It's not going to be that they're entertained by it. They need it, and they need it because it's going to unlock something in them, and it's going to expand their consciousness and release new ideas, and it's, you know, it's exponential. And so what I encourage my clients to dig into is remember that moment that you had where there was that seminal piece of work that just completely changed your life, that writer, that artist, that, you know, musician, whatever it was. You are that person. You're just not there on your timeline yet. And so you have an obligation not only to yourself and to that idea, but to that little kid who's growing up right now, who's going to be 22 when they need your book, that the book has to be there. And so it's the idea of looking at your work, not just for you, but for the people who need it, because it's going to unlock something bigger in them.
That's such a great answer. So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, those that read what you write, just a plethora of people that come in and out of your life. But you're in control. You've lived your life and lead it. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's so interesting because I've always been, and it leads back to being a divorced kid, very good at presenting aspects of myself. And this is the first time in my life where I feel like I have unapologetically assembled all those facets of myself, and I'm just not scared to share any of them anymore. So I'm a ton of things. I mean, there are so many things that I do, but it's the soul of me. It's just energy. I mean, we're all energy, and the energy that I put out there is one of empowerment and one of a belief in ourselves, and that's what I want people to take away. And I think I do a good job of that in my nonfiction writing, and I know I do a good job of that in my speaking events. I get that feedback, and I think there's other areas in my life where I can still improve on bringing that out more, but I'm proud of being able to stop fragmenting myself.
So I guess you may have just answered it, and you kind of led in perfectly to my next question, which is when you sit back at the end of the day and, you know, you look, we all have things that we're motivated by. So my question is, what are you motivated by on a daily basis? What makes you tick? And at the end of the day, how do you quantify a good, solid day?
Curiosity is what makes me tick. And it's curiosity about what's going to happen in the story or what's going to happen in the interview, like what we're doing right now, and just like the unexpected surprise of when you're brave enough to show yourself what chooses to show up for you. I like those unexpected surprises and those twists in the road, and so I seek them out in my fiction writing, but I welcome them in my life. And what makes a good, successful day for me is there's 4 things that if I do them, I'm like, okay, I did my work day today, and that's reading, writing, meditating, and exercising. So those are like my physical things. And then I try and do like one genuine connection with a person a day, and whether that's, a coaching call or writing. My brother got me a calligraphy pen, and I'm not very good, but I like to write like really fancy letters to people that are like short, but to my friends, and just surprise them with a little pink envelope in the mailbox. So just one form of genuine connection where you let someone know that you see them, because I think not feeling seen is one of the loneliest feelings in the world, and we all have the ability to help others be seen, and so connection is the final perfect day point.
If anyone out there wants to learn more about you and what you do, anything regarding your world, where's the best place for them to go?
JessicaConoley.com, and I spelled my name weird, so I will spell it for you. It's JESSICACONOLEY.com. And that will get you to my business website. That'll get you to my writing. You can read samples of my writing. If you want to experience a coaching session, you can find free coaching sessions on there. So that's the best starting place, and you can explore and adventure from there.
Jessica, hey, thank you for opening up. Thanks for taking time out today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and it was a great interview. I haven't got to talk about Tom York in an interview before, so.
Oh, man, that's great. I'm so glad you brought him up. Happy New Year, and good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple iTunes. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.